Hello and welcome to Banking Frontiers Live. We are in a very interesting discussion today on strategies for the Insta world. We have all been connected to each other and being sharing quite a lot of thoughts from time to time. And today we are going to have some fantastic conversations with the entire team on how the world is moving in an Insta mode and what are the strategies required for the CXOs of the financial sector to empower this Insta mode into their and make it a reality. So friends, today we will have various interesting bankers. We have, I think, a very good set of bankers and one very forward-looking NBFC CIO. All of them will be sharing their perspectives on how they are entering into this Insta world and making it a real success. Friends, I would now first like to invite Sachin from Datamoto to share with us a small outlook of what the Insta world is all about from his eyes and set a tone to this discussion for next 1 minute, followed by which we will start the introduction.
Thanks, Babu. Yes. I'm Sachin Londe, founder, director of Datamato. It's a 8-year-old organizations, predominantly working in the IT technology partners. So we're one of the co-chair of this roundtable conference for strategies for Insta World, which is arranged by Banking Frontier. They have been putting together these conference and workshop, I think was last several years, right? In order to give the opportunity to discuss all those great interests of Insta words. This topic was talk about the broad range of impact on one another, because we have the banking with the domain, and then we have the technology partner IBM and Datamato. So I believe this would be the really interesting discussion between this technology partner and the client like IBM. So on behalf of us, I would like to welcome one and all. So thank you, Babu.
Over to you, Pooja.
I'm Pooja. I work for DBS and I head the Alliances and Partnerships team there for CBG. And I've been working in banking sector for almost 20 years now.
My name is Deepak. I work with RBL Bank as an IT head. The only thing that is filling my mind is I'm a vacation-staffed IT executive, right? So that's the only thing that I'm looking forward to. I have a vacation of 7 days starting in 3 weeks from today. So I'm looking forward to it, but I'm also at the same time looking forward to share this space with some of my panelists here. I look forward.
Merzabin, can you just take over?
So hi, I work with Tata Capital. I head the digital technology for Tata Capital. Before Tata, I was with Muthoot HomeFin. I was heading their IT, and before that, I was with Fullerton. So most part of the career has been with BFSI, but I was also briefly a part of manufacturing when I was at Mahindra and Mahindra.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having me here, Babu. My name is KRC Murthy, and I work with Kotak Mahindra Bank. I'm head of RTB, which means run the bank, manage the entire production support for the bank. Been in banking and IT industry for 25 years, worked with some banks like Times Bank, HDFC Bank, Merrill Lynch, Deutsche Bank for 14 years, and then been here with Kotak Mahindra Bank for 2 years now. Thanks.
Fantastic. Abhinav, can you just share your introduction briefly, please?
So thank you, Babu, for this opportunity, and nice to connect with the fellow panelists. I am Abhinav Chaturvedi. I am currently heading digital banking for the payments bank arm of NSDL Payments Bank. Before this, I have worked with Vodafone in the payments department, which was Vodafone M-Pesa. And prior to that, I have worked with Axis and ICICI Bank. So it's more than a decade into BFSI.
Excellent. Fantastic. So Sachin, can I request you to please introduce yourself?
My name is Sachin Lunde. Actually, I have around 22 years of experience. So I started this Datamato in 2012. Before that, I was a part of IBM and Atos, leading a couple of countries as a deployment head. So purely in a techie role. When I started this company, it's like getting into the business from the technology side, and it's a very different journey altogether. Till now, we are catering large banking in India as a DevOps implementation. and a few telecom customers.
Prashant, can you just share your introduction, please?
Hey, hi. Hello to everybody. This is Prashant here. Currently working as a delivery head for DevOps with Datamato. More than 25 years of experience. Spent near about 9 years in the banking domain with GE Capital. And when it comes to implementations, I've done a very big project with the Reserve Bank of Fiji. And currently we are into DevOps implementation for a couple of banks. And that is the way we are associated with the banking domain. Thanks.
Excellent.
Hi, this is Rajan Chabria. I work with IBM, 22 years of sales experience, predominantly into banking finance. And I work with KRC a lot, Kotak Mahindra Bank, RBL, Deepak, right, Mezzabine. So good to have you all on the panel, and it will be great to hear from all of you on the perspective of how you're taking digital transformation a step ahead in the organizations that you work for.
Fantastic. So welcome everyone. Let us get into the groove now for what we are here in for today. So before we join into the Insta world, first and the most important thing that we have been seeing is in our journey towards the Insta world, there are a lot of difficulties, especially if there is a new product being launched or if there is a new innovation being launched. And today is an age of fintechs. Everyone is trying to engage with fintechs, bring out some innovations and launch it into the entire product range. So while we are doing all these launches, what are the key challenges that the BFSI sector, the financial sector faces, where we really need to, strategize something very, very strongly to make sure it is very smooth? What are the key challenges we face? So can one of the bankers start off? Maybe KRC, you have been onto a launching spree for quite some time with Kotak doing a lot of things right from video KYC to recently announced things. So can you share some perspective?
Yeah, thanks, Babu. I think you have answered my question, right? So Kotak has always been a digital-first bank, right? Be it launching a voice chatbot called Kea into the market, being the first ones to launch or the video KYC, the first bank to launch the video KYC, especially during the peak times of COVID, right? That was a forward-looking thing, right? How do you make your banking contactless? So these are the things which, we think ahead, a little ahead, and then start planning our journey. As you rightly mentioned, it's not easy launching a digital product just like that. There are a lot of nuances, a lot of collaborations you need to do internally and externally, right? And the most important thing is security, right? You can't just launch the product without a security. So from a perspective of collaborating and getting things right and launching it at the time, it takes quite a toll. The important thing here is, hearing the customer perspective. What does the customer really require? So we look at it from that perspective. I launch a product, but really, is it touching my customer? And is it the voice of the customer? So that's where we look at what are the trends, what is the requirement, and then we work backwards. And then, of course, we collaborate with our partners, and then we launch the products like that.
Fantastic. So that's a very interesting process which you have been following. If I go to Pooja, you have been DBS Digi Bank was one of the wow factor for the industry. I remember this about 2 to 3 years back when this was launched, and of course Kotak 811 was also there, and a lot of other banks have also been launching those kind of stuff. So how has your experience as an MNC bank been in terms of launching these products? What kind of challenges you face when you bring these products into the mainstream?
Yeah, so thank you, Babu. Just quickly taking it up from where Murthy was, referring to or going to, was that as a bank, the objective is pretty much the same. So I don't think there's too much of a difference when it comes to the bank objective, a supported bank or a DPS bank. In today's day and time, digital is, and I'm not talking 2 years back, because 2 years back was a slightly different story, but if I was to look at today's day and time, I think practically every customer is almost expecting an Insta banking as a hygiene factor, not really as a wow factor. I remember the times when 811 had gone live, and I remember the times when a lot of these things were still had a novelty factor to it. But I think over a period of time, it's become a way of life for customers. They are expecting that you will be able to provide this. This is not a differentiator anymore. How elegantly can you do it probably is the differentiator, but can you do it or not is not a differentiator. Having said that, as an MNC bank, there are 2-3 things that you have to keep in mind. One, obviously you are working as a foreign entity in the country. So, the compliance and the security aspects become slightly more stringent for you. And you have to ensure that you're following everything to the T. And I think DBS as a bank is very, very particular when it comes to following security and regulatory aspects. So are other banks. So I'm not saying they're not, but as a MNC, you place a specific emphasis on making sure that you're not going, out of the rail tracks in any which manner. So the product launches that typically, a bank like us will do will also keep in mind. Also, that there's a slight difference here will be that, as Murthy was saying, that it's customers ask. So essentially you respond to a customer ask. I'll just take it a little further and say the customer differentiates between banks basis on what usage are they going to put that particular product to. So ask can vary for an MNC bank as compared to a private bank, to a fintech, to an NBFC.
Mezzabin, can you just take over from a NBFC side? So we have two more very interesting perspectives to look at, but let us take from the NBFC side and get an idea from your side as to how you feel that things are moving when it comes to launch.
So yes, I mean, in my case, or I think in most of our cases, for most of us, we would have seen one of the key challenges that we face whenever, we are in a hurry of launching a product, a process, or a technology, is that we miss a lot of proper scoping part. So what happens more often than not is that in a hurry to launch, this key aspect is not fully attended. Sometimes this is, driven by internal pressure, but mostly this happens due to external factors. Now, more often than not, regulatory and compliance-based changes or government directives. Now, during this entire COVID period, we have been posed with this challenge time and again. So either it's a contactless product launch that we have to do where we have a lot of internal pressure, or it's a government directive on, let's say, an EMI moratorium, or the latest one, the loan restructuring one, which is, kind of going on. So all of these come with a pre-decided deadline. You don't start with a proper requirement in hand. You don't start with a proper clarity of scope in hand, but you do have a deadline in sight which you have to meet. So everything has to be worked backwards, and the requirement kind of, become a moving target for you. So this is something that, the rest are all other parts of technology, development, life cycles. You can introduce a lot of technologies and kind of help crunch something somewhere. But scoping is something that, I feel that we have been facing a major challenge whenever it comes to a fast product delivery or something which is backed by a lot of speed pressure. So, and we kind of sometimes have to come out with something which is half baked and, go into a mode where you are like working and developing it as it is kind of maturing, which is like most of us, we are doing it. But this is something that I have seen to be one of the key challenges, especially during these times.
Excellent. Sachin, if I may ask you, from a technologist perspective, what do you see as as a leverage, especially for the financial companies? How can they have a smoother launch?
Yes, I think Mezzabin is rightly said. This is the typical scenario I have seen in the most of the bank and most of the customer, and that's the failure. Requirements, scoping of your, because they get the requirement from end user. It's like the end user, like their end customers. Requirement collected at the ground level as a UX or UI kind of thing. Then it comes to the technology side. The technology has their own understanding and own aspects of the understanding. The problem is they have deadlines. They said, okay, we have to launch this particular mobile application features in the 2 weeks time. Now, okay, The 2 weeks is very shorter time. Now, how do you launch it? They have a lot of teams involved. Like a requirement business analyst team is simply functional side. Then compliance comes in the picture because some central bank push something, and they have to accommodate those compliance run time. That's the biggest challenge. And fortunately, recently I would not name the bank. We are building a solutions, and the next month is going to launch it. Like this requirement has to be taken by the bank's applications, and we are automating that complete process of launching the applications, like a deploying applications through the infrastructure provisioning, and it involves entire compliance and then your security aspect. This is a very key thing, which is a really tough thing for us. I think that is the biggest challenge, because when you launch that, it should be foolproof, at least not a half cake, a big kind of product. It is like, at least you can say that the immediately customer access that product or features, you don't have time. You don't have time to retrofit and all those things. So that has to be taken well in advance. The second challenge I have seen that the culture, because bank has its own domain experts, but technology is one of the area, because in India, our 80-90% banking development is outsourced to the SI, but typically in the IT technology partner, right? And they have their in-house team and the outside team. The collaboration between those two teams is a big challenge. I have seen that, because you look at it the perspective A, and the technology vendor look at a perspective B. So there is something, we have to address that gap effectively to launch seamless digital transformation. It's a journey.
Fantastic. Fantastic. So let's go to the next question now. So once we have decided what are the launches happening and what are the kind of difficulties happening, now innovation with speed and agility is the need of the new normal. It is not just important to innovate, but also to make it available to customers ahead of your competition. How do you speed up this tangible as well as intangible component of this innovation? Any suggestions from Deepak? What is your thought on this?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so I come from the banking fraternity, but I'm going to be very critical of banks. Okay, and I was itching to add to what Sachin was saying. Bankers don't think product, and they can't launch products because they have such an elaborate process. I think Sachin touched upon this cultural aspect. We have these elaborate product approval committees. That this is like my favorite one. We have steering committees and governance committee that supervises the steering committees. We have a group of product guys who do impact analysis for 4 weeks, and they write notes, right? And for the product committee to read those notes takes about 3 weeks. So bankers, unfortunately, we are not very good at launching products. That's something that I can say. People on the panel can respectfully disagree. DBS to some extent is faster, and Kotak we are trying to get to. KRC launched video KYC 2 weeks ahead of us. But we came 2 weeks behind him, and we failed with the product, but at least we were close enough to the market. Innovation is another similar, I would say, it's in the same vocabulary, right? Innovation is ability into creativity, right? Bankers also are not very innovative. That's another admission that I must make. But we're getting there. The fintechs of the world are trying to push these incumbents to get into critical thinking. How is that the bigger brands today are creating categories, right? We can't think of iPad in that particular category and anybody else that's even close enough. Maybe Samsung to some extent, because they're a cheaper alternative. But iPad as a category is Apple, right? Similarly, iPhone as a category is synonymous to the iPhone, to the smartphone, right? And there are many examples. You have Harry Potter that's created a separate category for thriller books, and so on and so forth. So they are able to innovate simply because they have that kind of DNA. And bankers, unfortunately, are still in the they're still in the race. They're still trying to sort of catch up. In my experience, there's something that we did, and I don't wish to take a gripe at Rajan, but IBM came to us and they said they will help us build a bot. Okay. It's a small little chatbot for our employees, because during the onset of COVID, suddenly we became so paralyzed that our ability to communicate with about 7,000-8,000 people was becoming so difficult, right? The government guidelines, kept changing. You had the Maharashtra, health, guidelines that were coming in. Sometimes, they were contravening to what the central government was saying, with respect to interstate movements and things like that. We put together an interdisciplinary team to actually just purely address communication, right? So when IBM came and presented to us, we all sat up and we said, okay, chatbot could be a channel, right? Because, you have these new age people, millennials, typically they are mobile first. They're born mobile, and they will be able to, adapt to this like duck to water. But for IBM, and IBM is also a fairly large company, and for us to sign the deal, it took us 2 days. And we got the order form out, and IBM had their own internal, communication protocols. They had to send it to their international teams, and then for something to get provisioned was another 48 hours. And we were thinking, if as a bank, if it takes me 48 hours to sign the order, how are we able to innovate and go out there and produce world-class products? It's really very, very hard hitting to an extent. Then we said, okay, let's not go the IBM way. Let's build this in-house. So I took a couple of trainees, went to a Google Dialogflow, built about 50 questions that employees could basically use self-service, right? Babu, in the first 7 days, we had about 1,200 hits on the chatbot. First 7 days, right? Things that we could not do by calling employees and telling them what should they do. What is the, there was also this anti-mask protest. People said, wearing mask for 8 hours is difficult, right? What do they do when people are infected? What if they are caregivers sitting at home? What are some of these safety norms? Your bank is asking employees to come back to work, but do they have the right amount of safety norms at large offices? Do you have sufficient social distancing, physical strength, and things like that? But yeah, this was actually very eye-opening, and I'm pretty sure that this is it's the same sentiment across other bankers on the panel, that the pandemic has actually changed life upside down for traditional industries who don't think product, who don't think customer, who don't think innovation.
Great, Abhinav. I think like you are the new baby in the block, at least when it comes to the number of years that your bank has.
Yeah, sure. Customers also.
Absolutely. So customers are also new, bank is also new. On one side, you have to convince the customers that you be my customer. On the other side, you have to give them innovation. What is your experience when it comes to giving the agility and speed? Because of course, being small size, Singapore can do a lot of wonders in innovation than India, which is an elephant there. Same way, you will also have some advantage and disadvantage. Can we just understand what is your experience by bringing in speed and agility?
Sure. So we kind of an amalgamation of a bank, because regulations, largely all the regulations apply to us, but kind of starting from scratch, so no legacy issues, etc. So that advantage. So when we look at what we should launch, so we will obviously launch savings account, current account, etc. But what area we should focus upon. So largely we look at two kind of risks. If I am launching something that already sells as a financial product in country, but then I am competing against the giant banks in the country. If I go and launch something that's kind of innovative, nobody has ever sold it. There are areas that has not been tapped yet. But then I'm running a risk that I don't know whether people will be ready to pay for it. It's worthwhile for someone to experience and buy and actually pay something to avail this service. But kind of we have taken a call, we'll go this way, we will launch something that's maybe a little different from what is already there. But then we put or not just for us, for anyone who is launching any innovative product, the risk is that you have invested your money, your resources, your time, and you launch, and let's say in best case scenario it clicks. Now in times of API banking, open banking, web, etc., there is no trade secret anymore. So your competition will know that this is a product that works. Now, all that you have got is like 30 days, 60 days, 90 days lead, depending on the kind of product you have launched, right? So that lead is actually important. Now they will catch up because it sells, it works. They can do because they have all those approvals, they have all those technology stacks behind them. But that lead is important because the insight that you get from the market on first day or from the internal stakeholders on first day, your competition is gonna get maybe in 30 days or 90 days. Now you can't just sit idle that I have launched, it works. You have to keep on building maybe layers over that product, or maybe make it more relevant with the insight that you get from the market, from the consumer, and maybe create a cycle. It sounds a bit theoretical, but I think that's the only way, at least for small organizations like us, to to make headway into the industry. So that's how I kind of see.
You actually led me to my next question. Okay, my next question was exactly in the area of tweaks and changes or refreshments to the product. So you actually led me to that question, but let me hold the horses back before I jump into that. Let me ask Prashant. Prashant, you have been a technologist, okay?
Correct.
And you have been working on this for 5 years. Now, bringing speed and agility, how do you bring together the tangible and intangible components together in this innovation?
So, yeah, thanks, Babu. So, I would echo a lot what Abhinav has said, but then building a mix and match with technology and the frameworks, what is there. So, one thing I would really echo what Abhinav said is that, being being a new bank, it was very easy to adopt agility. It was very easy to adopt the technology, what is there, whereas it becomes very difficult for the enterprise banks which are there who have been a legacy to adopt certain things. Now, today, if we really talk about technology, how do you really align technology with agility? The technological frameworks have also become very agile. Okay, if I go down to building an application in a legacy way, okay, it does not really help me build agility. But today, in the world of microservices, today in the world of containers, okay, today in the world when the business has adopted agility, what Abhinav just said, that the requirement keeps on coming in bits and pieces. The business only looks at those pieces which deliver a high value immediately, and there is a challenge with technology. And in technology today, whether it is development, whether it is testing, or it is deployment in the infrastructure, it can really be done in an agile. It can really be done in an agile way. And yes, to add to Abhinav, yes, microservices is the way ahead for the future. Either you are converting a legacy application into a modern world application, so agility plays a very important role. And whereas there is something new which a bank wants to build, but then they don't know what the real value is going to be, but they still want to test it. They want to deploy it, see the feedback, see the iteration has gone successful, then move ahead. So yes, the future is microservice, the future is containerization, and it can very well be adopted by enterprises also. It can be very well adopted by the newcomers also.
Fantastic. That was a technology version of my
yes.
Product tweaks, product refinements, and all these things are very common when we launch a product, because ultimately after launching a product, we actually realize that, hey, this tweak would have made it better. And that insight also comes to us. So how can we make these tweaks a delightful experience for both the users and within the organization? Though we do all the homeworks before launching it, how are these tweaks going to be much more interesting, and how can we make it much more effective to everyone? I would like to start off with maybe Pooja.
So thank you, Babu, again. The deal is with tweaks. I'd just like to put a separate spin to it, because Abhinav is coming from a small bank and I'm coming from a bank where tweaks is the most difficult thing to do. Anything is difficult to do, as Deepak said, because we have our own committees who like to take their own time to approve anything. By the time they approve it, the tweak has already gone out of fashion. So, there is this angle to it. Having said that, it always helps to do small tweaks and test them if you can, if you have the luxury to do that. And it also helps you test your hypothesis, because more often than not, bankers are not the most, sorry guys, but not the most outward looking guys. We're very inward focused. We're very focused on our revenue. If I get this, what will be my target this month, etc., etc. Many times you miss the big picture because the world has moved on. So about a few years back, nobody thought everything will be done on a mobile app, and bank will become redundant in that sense. The branches will become redundant to a certain extent. So tweaks help you get there in a slow process and in a process which is more cost effective to my mind if you can do it right. Having said that, to do a tweak, you need to have that level of agility internally, not just on the technology side, but also on the thinking side, on the security side, on the alignment of goals with other parts of the organization, especially when you're working with a big network matrix organization. And again, as I said, Abhinav, his landscape could be slightly different from the landscape that I'm speaking from, because you have so many stakeholders. Unless you have an agility to do that quickly and come up with tweaks quickly and learn from it and move on, and everybody is aligned to that mindset, it is still a challenge for large banks, to my mind, to run with those tweaks and make sure that you are there in the right time to capitalize on those tweaks. Broadly, that's what I think is a challenge that all banks face, big banks at least face.
I agree with you, because you just not only have one level above what the normal banks in India have. You have to satisfy the local regulator. You have to satisfy the what you call as your own set of people and your own compliance team. You also have to do it with your global headquarters or whatever it is, the global regulator also. And ultimately, your step is one more level higher when you get this request. Great. Mezzabin, you have been from an NBFC perspective, and I know in the last organization where you were there also, you have done a lot of interesting tweaks, and Tata Capital itself is also into an innovation spree most of the time. How have you been working when it comes to the tweaks, and how are you making it a little more effortless, especially for the people?
So when I first heard the question, when you narrated it, Mr. Nair, I was like, why are we talking about making it a delightful experience for business and customers after we have kind of launched it, and why are we not investing it in, before? But then you kind of corrected it, saying that, why we have done our homework, and even after that, how do we kind of make it? So there's a lot of effort, etc., that we try and put before we kind of, plan any such tweaks, because unless this is compliance driven, which mandates you to follow a certain timeline, if this is something which is coming from the product side, then we try and do a good amount of dipstick, and we make it very, very essential to kind of involve the users who would actually be kind of using it right from the stage where we are evaluating, that tweak, whether we should make it a part of our journey, or not. Because when we do that, then since they're a part of the entire cycle, the adoption later on becomes much easier for us. So deriving adoption does not take on much of our time. We do not have to worry about any cultural challenges that will come into picture if I have to introduce a tweak. So we try and get people on board before we kind of, embark on the journey of making a tweak. And lastly, I mean, delight is irrespectively derived if you are, kind of raking moolah from the tweak that you have done, or, if you have brought in ease of process by the change that you have done. So then, I mean, obviously, everyone starts accepting it and kind of adopting it with open arms. So our agenda behind any sort of a tweak that we make is that it's not just our attempt to kind of board the Me Too bandwagon, but it is also something which is kind of bringing in real value. Either it will bring in some sort of revenue benefits for me, or it is going to bring in some sort of ease of process or ease of usage for my users. So for example, if suddenly I decide to kind of introduce OCR in my KYC journey, then this is this kind of making life simpler for my sales, my feet on the street, or is it kind of making just adding one more hop or one more process step for them? So little things that we kind of do. If I'm doing a statement integration, am I kind of bringing value, or am I just kind of doing it because everyone else in the market is doing it? Does manual, kind of statement reading makes more sense for me? So, for example, when I was a part with Muthoot Homefin, that was affordable housing. And everyone in the last few years have been doing integration with your bank statement analyzers, because it has made the entire process of statement analysis very, very simple. But with an affordable housing company where you are kind of lending out ticket size, which is, an average size of 10 to 12 lakhs, I'm talking about people where I'm lending who are vegetable vendors, who are daily wage earners, people with small time mobile shops, etc. So these are the people who would probably, bring in a copy of a dot matrix printed physical copy of a bank statement. No statement analyzer can help me with, that kind of analysis of that kind of, bank statement. So for me, it does not make sense for me to invest. It's a very good technology. The adoption of that technology right now is huge. Is it making sense for me to kind of adopt that product tweak? Probably not, unless the product comes out with a change which can read these kind of bank statements, the physical copies which are mostly soiled, very difficult to read. I think my credit team doing a manual eyeballing will do a much better job than any tool in the market would. So going by proper analysis of these things, once you are yourself convinced that it is going to bring value, then involving people who are actually going to use it, that makes a lot of sense before kind of launching anything or making any sort of tweaks into thing which is kind of running smoothly and we kind of fiddling with it. That's
I
my
agree with you. Ultimately, building everything, the most ideal, the most beautiful, the most appropriate thing is what every one of us does with research. But ultimately, many a times it happens that the situation demands that there is like for example, a COVID has made certain processes absolutely require a tweak,
Yes.
and you don't have a choice. Okay, and that is the time when you have to think out of the box. So, Rajan, how as a technologist, so one side is of course the business which all our friends from the banking have shared with us. As a technologist, how do you think these tweaks can be made a little bit more effortless, frictionless, and more friendly for the organization, especially where you cannot help the tweaks to happen and you could not plan some things in the launch phase?
Absolutely. I think, Babu, even more with pandemic coming in, right? It's more a question of how do you make that value proposition of your organization across to your clients, right? So digital transformation is something which we are seeing across all the clients that we engage with, right? The whole perspective about phygital, right? Physical and digital boundaries vanishing. That's the same thing that we are seeing in organizations itself, right? So when we engage with banks, even government for that example, right? I mean, Deepak mentioned earlier that because of this pandemic, he wanted to launch a chatbot. In fact, we partnered with ICMR, right? Where we actually could launch a chatbot for them over a weekend, right? And after having had that success with ICMR, government of Andhra Pradesh came to us and saying they wanted to launch a chatbot. And we did that with them. So I think not just banks or private companies, even governments have seen this as a situation where they need to respond, right? So, and it has to be respond with speed, because it's all about time to value, right? It's not about just a technology intervention at the end of the day. Wherever we engage with clients, it's about business outcomes, right? So somewhere we see business, IT, operations, right? Although they used to be silos earlier, they're all coming together, signing up on a business outcome. So how do you really enable these organizations through engagements, through technology interventions to make these business outcomes possible? I think that's the whole perspective that we are working with clients. And as my panelists mentioned, right, it's not about delivering the final product the first time. It's about delivering the most valuable outcome at a highest speed possible, right? So we've seen examples like 911, right? A DigiBank. I mean, why do we all, look at it with so much value? Because it had an innovation content, right? It was something which the market needed. And somebody thought about it and brought it out at the right time before somebody else could bring it out. So there is a pressure of time. There is time to value, which you need to make sure of. But at the same time, security, compliance, and all of it is very important, because come on, I mean, it's all about banks, right? It's all about money. So you can't make these features or functionalities available to clients which are not secured, right? So how do you really do a continuous development, a continuous integration, a continuous testing, right? How do you achieve that is something that we partner with clients and make them help them achieve these goals, right? So we have great technologies around it. We have partners, Datamato. We've done it with Yes Bank. We've done it with many other banks, right? So there are these tools which are available, right? Which can actually help organizations to achieve these business outcomes at a higher time to value, but secure and within the compliant norms that we all value.
Rajan, today any of these things requires three things.
Yeah.
This product, process, and technology.
Yes.
All these three things have to be intermingled, or data, technology, and processes.
Absolutely.
They have to be intermingled with each other to make all these things possible. Now, this intermingling made it easier, or has it made it tougher?
Absolutely. I think, as I said, right, it's no more a silo thing, right? It's a business outcome to which business, which is sales, IT, which is the enabling team within the organization, and operations, which is the delivery team, all sign up together and make that business outcome possible, right? So obviously it's not simple. Now you're not depending upon one individual or one organization taking that decision, right? It's a collaborative force of that organization signing up for that business outcome, right? So yeah, definitely it's become much more complicated. In fact, we've seen almost 34% of new projects which are getting launched, right, are delayed. And that's because somebody is ahead of the game, somebody is lagging behind. But you can't launch a product unless it is satisfying the business objectives, it is compliant to your organization norms, and it is deliverable to the customer, right? Because all these three components are important. If you deliver a wow product, but if you are not supporting it with operations, right, and your customers don't enjoy the service quality of it, that idea is going to fail, right? So you have to be ahead of the game, but at the same time, you also need to make sure that it's successful. So obviously it's become complicated. It's become that much more challenging, but the beauty is there are tools, right, which a lot of our clients are using, which we are enabling through technology, and Datamato being fantastic partners for us for various of these engagements with clients, which is actually making these business outcomes possible today in the market scenario.
How have you been putting together the data, process, and technology? Do you see a silo doing a better job, or a collaboration doing a better job between the business and technology? And how have you experienced it?
Yeah, Babu, I think it's an interesting question. Yeah, I think it is a part and a parcel of life that one has to learn the art of collaboration. You can't work being aloof. It is inevitable, not to have multiple partners. As you rightly said, it's an Insta world, and in the Insta world, everyone wants to launch like this, and especially we are always on the gas pedal, to launch new products quickly, and it's a top-down approach from us for us, Babu. From the top, we are pushed to launch digital products as quickly as possible. So one way it makes my life easier. I don't have to really go and sit across the table and explain what I need to do, etc. So we are all very well connected within, right? We do have respective silos in place, right? You talk of the business, you talk of BSG, you have product owners like CTB, you have RTB, multiple partners to work with. All these guys come together on one single page and are in sync. Especially I have witnessed here, when Pooja was mentioning that, when global banks, especially, they want to launch something, it takes a lot of time. I have this experience of the same kind of experience when I was with Deutsche Bank for 14 years. It's absolutely not. By the time you actually launch, it's completely gone. It's out of fashion. Yeah, but here in a local bank like Kotak, and who especially is like always running and keeps us always on the toes, not toes, rather toenails, I would say. It becomes like too challenging for me a lot of times, but it's a win-win situation. I think collaboration works really well with us. When you have silos, let each silo do their work. Let them also come up with their their requirements, their sort of responsibility needs to be delivered. I think it works well for us. Yeah. And Rajan, just one correction. You mentioned, thanks for picking up Kotak 811 product. It's not 911, it's 811.
Sorry.
There's a lot of difference between 8-1 and 9-1.
Hey, great, fantastic. Thanks, Murthy. What also KRC? What also happens? The top-down approach makes a lot of difference, because then everyone tries to put their antennas up and reach it at the same level.
Absolutely.
And,
Deepak mentioned that, he rightly mentioned that Google and Apple and Amazon, they have their DNA in, that kind of fashion. Ironically, our management says that, look at that, that's what the DNA you need to adapt. They compare, with those kind of organizations. How do they adapt, and what's their policy procedures? How do they do it? That's kind of approach which is pushed down our throats.
Interesting. In fact, even in the MNC banks, Pooja, I had an opportunity to talk to Piyush, especially when I was in Singapore FinTech Festival and all. The kind of technology depth that some of the top management has, okay, is immense. Okay, I was told by their chief digital officer that they have some 80,000 or whatever number of employees. Everyone is an innovator there. Okay, that is the kind of mindset with which some of the banks operate, to be agile. So I think the banks are getting there at least, and especially with the fintechs chasing them on the other side, they got to be agile. Deepak, any different perspective you have to share on this? Because you have been an innovator in sharing perspectives also.
Let me give you a different perspective. Sachin Tendulkar, who's the world's best batsman, he had a rather rough tour in 2003, around about. Okay. He was particularly getting outside the off stump. That's like his, in the V is his best, scoring area. But he was getting out, caught behind, or caught at the first, second slip. So what he did? He went back and he started making a lot of tweaks to his gameplay, right? His stance, he started taking, instead of the middle stump guard, he started taking off stump guard. So no, he knows exactly what the corridor of uncertainty is. So he started leaving some of those balls. And throughout the Sydney match, there's one particular test match that he played where he completely shunned out all his scoring opportunities on the offside. He only scored towards the leg. The mid-wicket, leg, mid-on. And, if you looked at his scoring chart, he never scored anything on the offside. And he went on to have a, great innings. He scored a century, etc. If the world's best batsman can do all these tweaks in the nets, improve his game, improve every single aspect of his batting, that's what banks should do. If you want to become the best bank, and, I saw Uday Kotak's tweet last weekend, 2010 versus 2020. It was a fascinating tweet, right? 2010, you had 9 out of 10 banks. In fact, 10 out of 10 banks were bankers, right? 2020, 6 of the top 10 bankers are no longer bankers. They're all, consumer companies. Correct. 2030 is going to be a fantastic prediction, and I don't want to get there. I've been too critical of bankers in any case. But, that's my perspective.
But that what you spoke about Sachin Tendulkar was very interesting, focusing on his weakness and trying to, hide that weakness totally and getting into the other areas where he is strong. So, great. Sachin.
That is exactly why we have him as brand ambassador as well. So, there's a reason why we have him.
Excellent. Excellent. So, Sachin, what is you're on mute? Sorry.
It's okay, audible?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. We talk about data, we talk about technology, we talk about processes, we talk about innovation, we talk about transformation. Everything is nice words, right? But one thing we are missing out, the most unpredictable creature on the earth, which is human being. You need a right team to do that transformation. I have miserably failed. I'm not, hesitant to explore my possibility, and I would say my experience in 2014, 15, 16. We are the first company who started DevOps in India, I would say. I'm the first person who was one of the panelists in US. There I saw the most challenging thing that the banks typically, they talk about innovation, technology, and they launch. They have budget, they identify team. Let's say they want to do the automation and deployment. What they do, they take the opt-in and say that, okay, guys, look, this is the we want to automate this thing and we are getting ROI and blah blah blah. Okay. Now the problem is, are the team is really adopting that change? Are they really eager to change? The first thing is, मेरा job चला जाएगा. This is first thing, I have seen it. So important factor is identifying the right team. So you can have a cross, section in the bank itself, have a different teams who are really adopt the changes, make that team, make that changes, make the success out of it, and show it to other teams. That's something I had done it in one of the bank in India, and we are successful. So team, the people is most critical part of any transformation. You have an excellent innovative technology, or would you say excellent processes, but yes, you need a right team to do that transformation.
I agree with you. Prashant, anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, just to add to Sachin what he said, we need to really implement the Newton's law here. We need to have a buy-in from the top level. So when it comes down, it hits very badly, and then automatically the innovation happens. If you try to work on a horizontal level, the matter what best processes, best people, best technology you have, you will not really have it. And digital transformation is all about a disruptive change. Short run, you'll have a very high risk. You'll not be able to see the value. But when you go in the long run, there'll be a lot of benefits. So a couple of people, when they were actually putting across their thoughts, the ones who took the risk, the ones who adopted, okay, in the long run, they're definitely going to see the benefits what are there. But I go with one stance, what he said, like he being the CEO of the organization, and I've been with him from last 10, 12 years. We know what happens when something comes from the top level to the bottom, and we have seen how it works in a horizontal way. So if you want to bring in a change, if you want to bring in the digital transformation, you want to bring that long-term value, you will have to implement the theory of Newton's law in the organization also.
So that, two things. Sachin's conversation gave me, put my thoughts into one of my very famous statements. Okay. Intel inside, idiot outside. You need people. You implement the best of the Intels of the world, but if you have an idiot operating it, it won't work for you. On the other side, from what Prashant is speaking about, when you speak about this, even Albert Einstein has said, the problem should not be definitely attacked at the same level. You have to go to one level, two level, or few notches up and attack the problem. Only then somebody gives you a serious ear to the solution of the problem. So I think both these things make sense. But I am going back to Mahzabine's thought, why do you want to, bring tweaks and bring security and all after, the damage is done? Okay. Why don't you think of it before? So what Gartner has been speaking in some of the Gartner security forum and all, not that I understand too much of the technology per se, but whatever I understand. So they have been speaking about building grounds up security, grounds up compliance, so that it does not become a problem for you later in, once you put everything together, you don't start plugging holes in your product or start to do the tweaks. Correct. So how are organizations on one side, trying to design security into, or the robustness into the process itself and continuously getting it tweaked rather than getting it tweaked, coming to know of it later? What kind of experiences have the banking and financial services got to share in that? Anybody can take that question? Abhinav? Yes, Abhinav.
So, Babu, when we talk about tweaks, so there are certain things that you can plan. That this is what MVP, I think Rajan was also mentioning. This is the MVP, I want to take it to market. But there are certain areas, for example, security. You may not have same approach when you talk about security. You can have this approach when you are talking about product feature. So if I have to take an example, if I have to launch a car, it can't have 3 tires. So that's not MVP. That let's go to market with 3 tires and then we'll bring 4 tires in some time. So there are certain things, and security comes in that area, seat belt or etc. That has to be there when you are launching something. when we say about when we talk about that tweaks can happen, MVP should go to market, it's all about in my experience, whatever products I have launched, I have seen that it's okay, the main product, but whatever nuances the product team or the design team or the whole teams put together build, most of them are actually not used. I mean, you realize once you launch that, okay, I launched maybe 20 things around this product, 12 of them are not working, 8 of them are working. My point is, why not, plan it? You go ahead and, go ahead with 4 features, and then you do A/B testing, you do, customer focus group interviews, and then you one by one maybe build product, rather than investing money, energy on all 20 features, and then you realize that maybe 12 of them are not working at all. So basically we need to differentiate where we can, plan tweaks and plan in advance, instead of, it should be a known call that I am doing this. Maybe in a month's time, I'll come back and ask for all these things, rather than, it coming as a surprise that it is coming from the market that you gave this, but there is no modify button. It shouldn't be like that. So that's the differentiation we need to kind of have.
Interesting. It reminds me of a car company, when they sell you cars, it has got space for fog lamps. It has got space for certain kind of accessories, which you may put if you need. If you are operating in Delhi, you may need definitely a fog lamp, not in Mumbai.
Yes.
Correct. So it's a very great observation. Anything to add from Azebin? That was your favorite area. So I would like to know something if you want to add on from that. You are on mute.
I said I just wanted to make a little correction. What I had said at that point in time was that we have launched something and then we are trying to work on kind of improving the experience for the people we have launched it with. Rather than that, why don't we kind of, run some analysis beforehand or do some checks beforehand to understand whether, there'll be, there will be people who would want it, who would grab it, or it will be kind of up for grabs type. So you never know that. So that's where I was coming.
Absolutely fine. Absolutely. I mean, that is the need of the hour also. You have to plan certain things very much in advance, no doubts about it. Another thing is, of course, when you as a banker are launching a product, there is not even an iota of compliance which you can compromise of. At least, no banker, I have been into all the fintech events where the products are being launched. Nobody is ready to compromise, and seriously, so no regulator is going to be agreeing to it. So in such a circumstances, how do you balance? On the other side, your business is very, very gung-ho. Hey, I want this product to be launched in so-and-so time. Kotak is already launched 811. Why can't I launch my product? Or maybe why can't RBL launch its video KYC immediately? And I need a successful one also. So under such circumstances, how do we manage? How do you make sure that you keep Mr. Compliance satisfied and Mr. Business also satisfied?
It's a very tough call. In fact, as we are speaking of it, I had been dealing with this a couple of days back. And so there are these FLDG partnerships that, we do, as in NBFCs do, wherein we kind of source loans from the customer base of certain companies, and then it becomes their onus to kind of derive the loan cycle with respect to everything, with respect to their, the loan is on our books, but the entire collection, the entire piece is, is with them. And now with this entire KYC thing, undergoing so many changes, KYC nikal gaya, फिर we came with the offline KYC thing. Now the thing here is that when you're kind of aligned, you're making alliances with these partners, wherein you are using their customer base to kind of, sell loans, and they would have a solution where they would not have a very compliance ready KYC check kind of a thing. So these companies would typically have a wrapper solution in between, and there would be a parking portal before they kind of hit the UDI. But from a compliance perspective, this is a no-go, because I'm not going to give any parking slot for any other number. I would directly go to offline KYC mode where I, hit the UDI directly. But I mean, having said that, the NBFC space, there are a lot of players out there who still go ahead and they forge this partnership. And with the known knowledge that, there is this little bit of compliance risk involved, they still go ahead and do it, because in these times when business is not happening, you will kind of want to cash on to every channel, latch on to every channel that you can get for kind of sourcing business. But like Tata being Tata's integrity level and everything, and we are like, if it is a compliance driven thing, it's a compliance driven thing. So last 3 to 4 months, we have been kind of struggling to kind of either get our partners to remove, those kind of wrapper solutions and have build a direct, call to the UID, or kind of find partners where we can, because there is no tweaking that we would want to do as far as, regulation is concerned. So it is a real life challenge for us, because business is scarce. You would want to kind of tap into every potential stream from where you can make money. And then there are these challenges where a technology is there, but there is a certain compliance risk. And compliance risk also around something that kind of keeps on evolving and is kind of like a moving target. Matlab KYC ki space ke andar to you know how it has been. So that's a real life challenge. We try to deal with it as much as we can, and maybe circumvent at times in a compliant way and kind of make money.
I agree with you. Any banking friend wants to share any different perspective on this, how they have handled this question of shifting goalposts of compliance and the ever increasing needs of business?
So I'll quickly pitch in here, Babu. I think there is no way that you can avoid tweaks. It is evident to happen, right? How much ever you may plan, whatever you do, there will always be some or the other new requirement coming and some tweaks required. Especially when it comes to security, there's a complete strict no of bypassing even iota an inch of it for a bank, especially, right? There is absolutely no inch of leeway there. Let business go berserk, let any other team go berserk. No way at all. Especially the regulator won't spare me, and no way of ignoring any part of it, right? So we clearly give the timeline, and we clearly put our guidelines saying that it has to pass all these checks and norms. Only then it will go to production. I don't mind losing business. I don't mind being a little late, but it's all about a trust factor, right? You want to launch a product and you want to rush and just launch a product, and then you lose the trust factor. It takes 5 minutes to lose the entire trust factor and your organization to collapse, which I don't want that to happen. Simple. It has been built over years. Just because of one single mistake, do you want that to collapse? No way. I will not do that. It's okay. I'm okay to wait for a week more. That's fine. That's my thought process.
Conservative nature is definitely necessary to a great extent, especially when it comes to a business of trust, which your financial services use.
Banking is all about trust, Babu. That's it. Simple.
That is the foundation on which you can build a building, because you cannot show anything other than that. Once upon a time, people used to construct large bank buildings to show people that we can be trusted, and huge vaults. I have seen some wonderful vaults in different parts of Europe, which banks used to build to show people that you can be trusted with your money. Excellent. Any thoughts from Rajan? What do you say, especially when it comes to security and things related to innovations there?
Yeah, I think so. I think Mejavin covered it, and now KRC spoke about it, right? You can't compromise on trust. You can't compromise on the security with which you are making that product or that feature available to your clients. So it's all about a continuous process, right? It's all about having that plan, doing the deployment, the development, testing it, and then releasing it, right? And then monitoring the entire pipeline to make sure that all the releases that you are making, right, are all secure. And in fact, to go a step ahead, right? Now we are all talking about a world which is moving to hybrid cloud, public cloud, right? So it's not also just about security at rest, right? You also need to be equally worried about security during runtime, right? So bringing in these interventions, right? Doing this continuous process of development, release, right? But only through continuous testing. We can't compromise and release some half-baked MVP into the market, right? So I think it's very crucial that we do all of it. We are amenable, we are being agile, but at the same time, we are being secure. I think that's the bedrock of banking. or any NBFC or any business that you're in, not just banking, NBFC, any business is today is on the bedrock of trust. If that is not solid, I think the business model, as fancy it may be, some or the other time it will collapse.
Absolutely. I think that is one point where everyone has a very, very clear-cut agreement, especially when it comes to trust and compliance, because nobody wants to, at any point of time, create any issues with any of the regulators, because the moment you make the police come behind you, that means half of your life is ruined.
If I can just
Then
add,
Arnab will be behind you.
if I can make a 10-second interjection. See, today the regulators are also becoming smarter. Okay, and the biggest innovator today is NPCI, isn't it? The regulatory supervisors, who come in for the annual inspection, today they understand, they understand customer tables, they understand, GAMP tables of Finacle, and they understand cloud, hybrid, etc. So we can't any longer underestimate the ability of the regulator. And also the second, third lines of defenses in banks, they are also becoming business friendlier. It's not that it's an unreasonable argument. So let's say now we keep running into the CISO-CIO discussions, but they are willing to think customer, because they are also exposed to consumer IT, right? So consumer IT has actually given them that flavor. So it's no longer an unreasonable argument. It is the discussions are much more civil these days, and the fact that regulator also is becoming much smarter and much more technologically savvy is something that is to be noted. That I had a contrarian view.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Babu.
Thanks, Babu. Thanks to
Thank you,
banking
Nair.
team.
Thanks to everybody. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.